welcome you all here in person or if you're joining us on Zoom. Thanks for coming and stopping by for this Sunday gathering. At Unity, we have a mission statement that is our purpose, our why of why we gather as a spiritual community. And I invite you to read that with me. Unity of Charlotte. There we go. Unity of Charlotte is the place where we nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. Simply put, we are here to love, grow, and serve. Is there anyone here for the first time? Or maybe second time? Welcome. It's nice to have you here. We're always happy to see new faces. If you didn't receive a visitor's packet, one of our ushers and leaders will be happy to give one to you. You probably already got one. And we invite you to stay for fellowship afterwards and get to know us a little better. Let us get to know you. And all of us are newcomers in a certain way, isn't it? Because every single day is a fresh new day. So, welcome. We wanted to let you know that there's a lot of different ways to reach Unity of Charlotte and find out what we have going on. We have a website you can check out. We have a newsletter that goes out weekly. You can sign up for that newsletter on the website. We have a Facebook page, which we'd love to have you visit and like if you would. And we also have a YouTube channel where all of these Sunday messages get recorded, and you can go back and watch any of those that you might want to check out. And finally, we have a bulletin board. Yay! Giselle, thank you, Mark, very much. We actually have a bulletin board hung up, and we have lots of events on there, too, that we can't talk about everything here. So always go by the bulletin board, check it out, and see what's going on, and if you want to participate in anything. We're ready to move into prayer. So I invite you now to sit back, gently close your eyes if that's comfortable. Take a nice deep breath in, and on the exhale, feel your attention and your focus move from your head to your heart. We always move to our heart before a time of prayer. We let all the to-dos and worries and thoughts and ideas let go. We let them go for just this moment as we enter into a sacred space and a holy time, or return within and connect to that spirit that lives and moves and breathes as us. We know that God, as our single creator, is everywhere present, all the time. So there is no moment that we are without that power, that presence, that healing energy, that strength, and that wisdom. It comes alive within us and allows us to express ourselves in our own unique way in this world, but from a holy, sacred place. We also know and claim this presence is everywhere in this world, with everyone, but especially those who are suffering, who are grieving, who are dealing with horrific, sometimes, external circumstances. We hold and uplift them in our prayers, seeing the presence of God and the power of Spirit working in and through those situations. We uplift our community, knowing we're going through many, many changes, but feeling the steadfastness of the sacredness of our gathering, which we know through the communication and communion we have with the Spirit and with God. Grounded in that holy knowledge, we feel a sense of gratitude expressed through our hearts and expand into this space as we say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Amen. Please join together with me as we speak our unity prayer of oneness. There is one presence and one power in my life and the universe, God, the good, omnipotence. We claim and affirm this presence in our lives as love. Now I want to open up the space for just a moment. If you have anyone you want to lift in prayer, if you have a situation yourself that you want to lift in prayer, gently close your eyes and we're going to hold a moment of silence where you may speak that name out loud or in your heart. You may do that now. And once again, we claim the power and presence of Spirit already working in and through these situations and these individuals to bring about the good that is our inheritance. And so it is. Amen. Just to know, we have a prayer team here at Unity of Charlotte that is available to hold you in prayer. You can make a prayer request through the prayer box that's right outside the door on the table. There's prayer request forms there you can fill out and put in the box. We also have that prayer form available through our website. You can fill that out. It will go to our prayer team. And know that our prayer team holds these prayer requests in sacred trust and confidence for 14 days. And then they get sent to Unity, Silent Unity, which is our global prayers ministry. And they will hold everything in prayer for another 30 days. And I'd like to now invite our daily word readers up. I believe it's Barb and Maria.
La palabra de hoy es gloria. Celebro la gloria de Dios en mí y en todos los demás. Los impresionantes atributos de magnificencia, resplandor y tremendo poder describen la gloria de Dios. Como soy una expresión viva del Espíritu, estos atributos también son parte de mi naturaleza espiritual. Mi mente y mi corazón se llenan de gloria de Dios en el silencio de la oración. Cada persona es un reflejo de Dios, mostrando su gloria, al igual que yo, aunque mi percepción limitada no pueda captarlo completamente. Mi fe me revela esta verdad en cada persona que encuentro. Al tomar conciencia de la gloria de Dios, cada persona, la sabiduría espiritual, la comprensión y el amor me guían para colaborar con otros en la búsqueda de mayor armonía, abundancia y compasión para toda la humanidad y las criaturas del mundo. Yo les he dado la gloria que me diste, para que sean uno, así como nosotros somos uno. El libro de Juan 17:22.
Glory. I celebrate the glory of God in myself and all others. Magnificence, radiance, and tremendous power. These are the awe-inspiring qualities that describe the glory of God. Because I am the living expression of Spirit, these glorious attributes are also a part of my spiritual nature. In the peace of prayer, exquisite awareness of God's glory fills my mind and heart. Everyone is God's living expression, a reflection of divine glory, just as I am. Even when my limited human perception has not yet perceived it, my faith shows me this truth about every person I meet. As my awareness of glory within awakens, spiritual wisdom, understanding, and love. Teach me to cooperate with all who are seeking to build a greater harmony, abundance, and compassion among all humankind and the world's creatures. The glory that you have given me, I have given them, so that they may be one.
I'm going to ask you, can you relate? So I've got and the reason I'm thinking of this is because I've got a birthday coming up next month. Got a birthday, and when you have a birthday, when I have a birthday, I start thinking about where am I in my flow of life, right? And there are some times when I'm working at home, I'm just firing away, I'm working at my desk, and I stand up, and it's like, okay, and I march into the next room, and it's like, why did I come in here? A little bit embarrassing, but that's me. I chose, take a look at the screen. Our title today is Useful Irritation. I picked those dandelions, those beautiful colored dandelions, on Wednesday for a reason. And I can't tell you what that is today.
Allergies.
It made sense. Maybe it's allergies. It made so much sense to me on Wednesday. It's like, oh, everyone's going to love this, right? And I woke up this morning writing down some more notes on this talk that I'm giving. This like, dandelions? What? So I'm going to ask you to help me out when we move into fellowship. Share with me, why do you think, you're going to have to hear the talk first, but why do you think that useful irritation and dandelions go together? So we're going to explore this together. Help me out here, because I forget why I picked dandelions. Another clue as to what I speak of on Sundays is, and maybe this isn't such a secret, but it's usually things that are going on in my life. And that makes it really easy for me. It's whatever's going on in my life, what spiritual concept is speaking to me. Maybe sometimes there is an aha moment that I want to share with all of you. Maybe it's still the question of how do we bring spirituality to this challenge that is going on? Because I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong, that things that I go through, you might as well. You might be going through something similar, if not now, then maybe you have in the past, or maybe you will in the future as well. How does it relate to the truth of who I am at this moment? And that you can bring into your life as well. That's kind of how these Sunday topics get chosen. So we're going to explore this together this morning as well. Useful irritation. And I got when Reverend Lisa saw that, she says, I can't wait to hear where you're going to go with this. It's like, what are you talking about? Useful irritation. Well, the leadership of Unity of Charlotte has been going through a process, has been going through a class, an online class. It's called Quantum Living. It's a Quantum Living, the art of quantum living. We've been doing this together. That's the book that we use. And all of our leaders, all of our leadership of this church was invited to attend. And I'm so glad that we got most of everybody in a leadership position working in this class together. We've got the board, we've got the leaders of our committees and our ministries together, and I'm so glad for that. They took a leap to learn how to live and lead in this process. So it's hard work. Hard?
Yes.
It's hard work. But I'm gleaning some great lessons from that, and that's part of what we're going to talk about today. The website for this program says that you will learn less hesitation, more harmony. Less drama in your life and more delight. Less stress and more satisfaction. Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of stress as you're going through the class, but that's where we want to be. That's where we want to learn to be able to live our life in this situation. And I'm so glad for those who are joining Reverend Lisa and I in that class. We do. We want that in our lives. That idea of being a more centered and inspired leader and learning that process. And it's about making a positive difference in this world, I believe, as well. Making a positive difference in this world as well. It is an integrative, boy, am I saying that right? Integrative? Integrative. It's a process. Let's say it is a process of shadow work that we practice for our own personal evolution. So we believe within unity that we do the work internally, we do the work within, and then it reflects into our physical world, into this manifested world outside as well. It reflects outward. Our lives aren't outside in, our lives are inside out. And that's what we're doing with this process, is we're learning how to deal with some of the erroneous lessons that we've learned in childhood. I'm getting a nod from a lot of folks that understand this process. The process, let me say, the first thing that we talk about in this process in this book is that there are past experiences that have showed up, in our lives for one reason or another. Experiences, our lives are a series of experiences, aren't they? That's just life. That's simply life. And if you go back and remember, the past that we have is dealing with those events. Most of the time, our life is that series of things, and then just flow. There's nothing to work on, nothing to worry about. It was simply a flow of things within our lives, but that's not always the case. Sometimes we've created coping mechanisms to tell ourselves a story of how we're dealing with something or another, right? Something traumatic may have happened in our childhood. A caregiver may have said something to us, and we have to process that in some way or another. Those stories that we tell ourselves can be good or sometimes harsh. An example of good might be, what if you had an uncle that told you, wow, you're really good at art. You're probably going to be an artist. What if you had somebody else, a teacher, tell you that you were really good at math? Or maybe just somebody randomly said, oh, what a sweet child you are. And that sticks with you. That is the story that you take with you for the rest of your life. Hopefully all the good things that people say to you. But sometimes there are some harsh things. Maybe you heard or were told that you're never going to be good at sports. What if someone told you that you really weren't that smart at school? A little harsh, right? And that's what we're saying, is that we're going to have to deal with some of those things. But even worse, and these are the things that come up for us 20, 30, 40 years later, maybe. What if we learned the erroneous message that we're not lovable, that we're powerless in this world, that we're not good enough, we're not enough? Wouldn't that be something that we'd want to someday or other correct and lessen that story so that it doesn't always come back up again? Remember, we're talking about useful irritation here. So this trick that this book, this process is telling us, this shadow work that we're doing and these stories that repeatedly show up in our lives. And I'm going to give us an example of something that's literally been showing up in my life for 50 years. I'm going to share that with you in a little bit. But we get to discover what those are. We become aware of what those are. We get to feel that irritation momentarily. We're using that irritation as the useful grab you by the shoulders and shake you a little bit. Pay attention to this thing. Pay attention to this thing. And maybe we can lessen that pain and irritation that we feel over that thing, that discomfort, that button that's been pushed, or that trigger. Sometimes we use the word that trigger that's been pushed. That's what we're working through. This is the useful irritation. So with this useful irritation, and we learn this in the process, I get to choose how to deal with it. It's a button pushed, it's a trigger that sets you off. You get to choose, I get to choose what we do with it. I obviously feel it because it's a trigger, it's uncomfortable, it's rattled me in some way. So it's there, I can't deny it. Maybe it's my heart's racing, maybe there's something in the pit of my stomach. That's the irritation. Do I rant and stomp around for the rest of the day? Do I push that back down and let it come back up another day? And again, cycle through this year after year after year until the next time it comes up again? Or can I heal that? And that's what we're dealing with. That's what we want to do. We want to heal that button, that irritation, that trigger. And that happens through awareness and spiritual principles is what we're learning. So that the next time, maybe there's less ranting and raving. Maybe there's less stomping around. And I know Reverend Lisa would be happy in our household if I did a little less stomping around, letting her not have to hear my rants of what just went on. So these stories show up when we're triggered on just ordinary events of our lives. But the trick is, it's not usually the thing that just happened, right? It's not usually the offhanded remark that you just heard from a friend. Or it's not so much the car that might have cut you off. Somehow these things get overblown and set us off. Why I'm screaming at that guy in that car, he can't hear me, she can't hear me. That's not useful. But this comes back up to us again and again. It's not what just happened, but sometimes it's that thing in the past, that story that we've told ourselves, that belief that we go back to. That caregiver who said you were unlovable, when that friend says maybe a certain phrase that reminded you unconsciously of that message that caregiver gave you, an aunt, an uncle, a mom, and a dad. You slip back into that and you feel that all over again. That's what we want to deal with. It's not your friend necessarily, but you can deal with that. You can ask them, hey, I feel a little anxious when you say this. Maybe we shouldn't say this. But it's what happened in the past. What we've told ourselves is the truth. That's what we're dealing with here. These stories from long ago. The events of today simply remind us of those. These are our buttons. These are our triggers. This is what we're dealing with. And we're going through a 21-day process with this, of learning how to deal with those things that show up. The idea is I reserve, well, let me say it this way. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of the Unity Movement, along with his wife, Myrtle Fillmore, he wrote many years ago, and it ties in with this, the idea that, quote, I reserve the right to change my mind. Now, we use that quote a lot of times to talk about the theology of unity, because we declare that we don't have a dogma and that we can progress in the ways that we think. So a lot of times changing our mind deals with theology. But I would say that the lesson that Charles is also teaching us is that we can change our mind. Again, I reserve the right to change my mind. I reserve the right to change my mind on this story I've told myself for 50 years. It does not have to be the truth until the day I die. I reserve the right. And I think that I can be a happier person by changing that story for myself as well. We can notice the trigger. We can be aware of the feeling that happens when we get triggered. We can identify that lesson that we took to heart as a younger person, and we can correct it, we can change our mind, and we can heal. That's where we want to get to. We can heal that thing. Because healing for us is not just physical healing. There are emotional healings that we do within unity. There are relationship healings that we do within unity. Healing is a process that is not just, I've been diagnosed with this physical thing. It's spiritual, emotional, and it's relationship as well. So healing the story that I've told myself over the years is also what we do. I sat and, as you know, many times I write an affirmation that I take with me throughout the next week, throughout the coming week. And I couldn't pin it down this time. I couldn't pin that one sentence that I usually write on whatever topic we're talking about, on useful irritation. Why did he pet dandelions? My affirmation, I couldn't pin it down to one sentence. So let me just read to you what I did come up with. And this was, I was helped out by Facebook. So there is good on Facebook, right? You don't have to be afraid of Facebook. There are good things that happen and show up on Facebook. It said something like this, and I've tweaked it, I've changed it a little bit. To the person I was, I'm speaking to myself, to the person I was, I love you. To the person I am, I'm proud of you. And to the person I'm becoming, I'm excited for you. Let's look at that again. To the person I was, to the person you were, I love you. Because you did the best you could back then. When you told yourself that story that no longer serves you now, that you want to change, correct, make better, don't beat yourself up. Don't judge yourself. You did the best you could at that time. It might have been the only thing that saved you at that time, was telling yourself that story. To the person I am, I'm proud. To the person you are, you're proud of that person because you are growing in amazing ways. You wouldn't be here today if you weren't ready to grow in amazing ways. Give yourself credit for that. Pat yourself on the back. To the person I'm becoming, to the person you're becoming, you are divine. I want you to hear that. You are divine. And I'm going to add in here as well. I'm going to ask you to say this to somebody else today in fellowship. You are amazing. Even if you don't know that person's name, they don't have a name tag on because we're still looking for our name tags. Simply go up to them. You are amazing. Because we know that each and every, by our theology, we know that we were created in the image and likeness of God, which is good. Each person here, every person out in the world is amazing. Just remind them of that. You're amazing. And hopefully somebody will say to you, you're amazing as well. And then you can say to yourself, as you drive away from the service, I'm amazing. So we went through this process. We're 2 weeks through this 21-day process. My example that I've been actually working on, am I way behind schedule? Tell me my time.
You're good.
I'm good. The example, so we practice multiple times, over and over again. And sometimes you can see, what do you call it? You can see themes show up in your life, right? The same thing seems to be showing up over and over again. I started recognizing something within my life, so I want to go ahead and share that with you. And this is going out to Zoom, so I guess I'm sharing it with millions of people out there as well. So here's the setup. Here's the setup. One of the things that I learned from my family as I was growing up was that hard work was rewarded. Hard work. Work hard, you will be rewarded, right? Never be afraid to apply yourself. Dedicate your time and your focus to whatever task you're at. And obviously growing up, that was school, that was, you know, I had a job mowing lawns as a kid. That's how I made money for the things that I wanted, which was usually records and books. Working hard was a lesson that I learned. Work hard, and then there was this little tag on, work hard and play by the rules. Okay? That may have gotten me into a little bit of trouble, but let me describe this a little bit more. Work hard and play by the rules. Living life by the rules was a virtue in my family. It was rewarded. I was told what a good boy I was for playing by the rules, right? By letting others, whatever, by playing by the rules. I was praised when I accomplished something within the boundaries of the rules. Don't color outside the lines is one of the things that I did learn from my family. And from my childhood, I took this to heart, and I've lived with it ever since. I did not choose the right to change my life, as Charles Fillmore says, for 50 years. Maybe now within the next week, maybe I can a little bit when it works. And so listen to me as I learn this lesson for myself. So that was the setup. The triggers I feel today, the useful irritations that I feel today, because I'm going to become aware when these things show up in my life. The useful irritations are when others don't follow the rules. If my family told me that following the rules was the epitome of belonging to a group, well, it must apply to everybody else, right? But not everybody else plays by the rules that I think they should. And it triggers me. It triggers me in a lot of different ways. If I'm driving my car and somebody starts floating over the line, I beep at them, and they go back over, that's okay. But when it happens the second time, I start to feel it. There's my trigger. I make up all kinds of things. They're doing email on their phone as they're driving down the road. They're taking their life into their own hands. I'm making stuff up at this, but it bothers me. It's triggering me. What happens when that big giant truck in a parking lot takes up 2 spaces? Oh my God, it's the end of my world for a little bit of while, right? And it should. They've broken those little rules that I take seriously, and I'm triggered. What if instead I could work through this awareness? And here's where I am right now. Through this process, I'm becoming aware of those things. That in my subconscious, in my unconscious mind, I have internalized this belief that stability and fairness of our society depends on following the rules according to Reverend Jim, and that if everyone just did as I thought, then we'd have a happy, everyone would be happy. Living life by rules was the virtue, and I think everybody should live by that virtue. When others don't adhere to this story, then I become irritated. The last section, the person I want to become, the person I am becoming. I've come to realize, and I'm going to read this because this is a statement I've crafted for myself. I've come to realize it's possible to accept a situation that is out of order or even chaotic, and I can still feel peaceful in that moment. And that's where I want to be. Just because somebody took up 2 parking spaces doesn't mean it needs to ruin my day. I can still walk by that and still feel peaceful. I can still feel peaceful. I am whole, and I am harmonious. That's what I am becoming. I'm not necessarily there yet, but that's what I am becoming. Unity author Paul Hasselbeck, and here's the last thing I want to read to you. Unity author Paul Hasselbeck, he wrote the book on metaphysics, the literal book that ministers use in the metaphysical courses, 4 courses that they go through. He does a blog because he rewrites some of our daily word, and he calls them the absolute word. But some of these, and I've reworked, this isn't his exact words, but I loved this idea of I am divine and how it applied to this topic that we're talking about today. Because it talks about the way we become aware, this useful irritation, and how we can apply it and how we can change and be aware of our divinity. That's what he's talking about here. So let me just go ahead and read that to you. Paul Hasselbeck. I know that I am divine, but I cannot truly know this wholeness and harmony if I become distracted by the stories I hold of lack and limitation. I do not resist these limiting thoughts. Instead, I use my powers of understanding and wisdom to know how to release this in my life. I remember my divine wholeness, and this growing awareness of limitless divine within is everything I need to experience joy and abundance in this life. I feel peace. Over and over again, I say yes to my true spiritual nature, that of an ever-unfolding demonstration of wholeness. I am divine, he says. And I believe that 100%. You are divine. You are amazing. Share that with somebody. Know that I love you, I bless you, I appreciate each and every one of you here, out on Zoom, YouTube as well, and I behold the divine in each and every one of you. Namaste. Let's move into meditation. I invite you to wiggle around, uncross your legs maybe, and ground your feet onto the floor. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears as we move out of our head and into our heart for a few minutes. We may start by noticing our breath, feeling our breath within our body is how we notice it. We feel it in our chest, or maybe it's in our belly, or maybe it's at our nostrils. Pick one spot and notice your breath. And throughout this time, whenever your mind wanders, because we are human, come back to your breath. Or focus on my words, whatever works best for you. I know that my natural state, my awareness, is one where I am assured that I know I am divine. This becomes natural for me. I am good. When I make decisions that don't serve me, I come back and I choose again. I'm kind on myself, to others, seeing that divinity within myself and the whole of creation as well. I focus on this spiritual quality. And I let the practice of prayer and meditation remind me of this on a daily basis. I am divine. I am amazing. I live in a consciousness that knows that we do live in this world, this physical world, but that these worldly circumstances do not ultimately dictate my reality. I am a spiritual being. I am divine. I am amazing. I realize that there is never a time that I am separated from that whole of the universe, of God, however you envision that. We are all part of that greater good. We revel in that. We feel that in the depths of our heart and soul. I am divine. I am amazing. As we spend a moment or two in silence. As we begin to come out of that silence, we claim this knowledge, this divinity, as our birthright. We take a breath. We wiggle around. We bring ourselves back into this space. When it feels right, we open our eyes.
We now move into the circulation part of our service, where we recognize that giving and receiving are the same. And Unity of Charlotte is so blessed to have all the gifts that we receive and know that we are here because of you. So if you would take your offering in your hand, if you give online, just hold your hand or imagine it in your palms as we say our offertory blessing together. Joyously I give this gift, knowing the divine presence blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. We are light, love, power, and presence. Wherever we are,